Hello everyone, welcome to the series of CKA practice test. Today we are going to look at the network policy question. Here is the question. There is a security incident where a single backend pod got compromised. To prevent this, create a network policy called db-backend in the database namespace, and it should allow the pods running in the app namespace which has the label app tier. Additionally, this pod should only connect to 27017 port. So after implementation of this, the pod connection from the web pods to database tier pod should not work. What we have understood from the question is we have total 3 namespaces: the database namespaces, app namespace, and there is a web namespace as well. So this question is telling us that we need to create a network policy which is applied to the database namespace, and this policy should allow only pod running in the app tier with this label app is equal to tier is equal to app, and it should connect only on 27017 port. So let's visualize this problem first. Web namespace, we have, as discussed, we have 3 namespaces: web namespace, database namespace, and app namespace. So what we have to do currently, this all namespaces can talk to each other, but the requirement is we need to only deny the access from web tier to database namespace. Okay, let's first understand what is the namespace. The namespace in Kubernetes is a way to create a virtual cluster within a Kubernetes cluster. So it's like creating a separate environment where you can deploy your applications and they don't interfere other applications running in a different namespace. So why you need the namespace? The main reason is you need the namespace to provide a way to divide up and manage the resources within a Kubernetes cluster. So by using the namespaces, you can create the logical grouping of objects such as deployments, services, and pods, and we can manage them separately. Let's take an example. Let's say you have 2 teams working on a different application. So by creating a separate namespaces for each team, you can ensure that they have their own resources such as CPU, memory, and storage. So in this way, if one of the team application experiences some spike in the traffic, so it won't impact to other teams application. And to relate to this use case that we have just saw in a question, is we are creating the namespaces, or there is already namespaces present, but we are just modifying the network policy. And by modifying the network policy, we are making sure that the traffic won't reach to other namespaces. Okay, so what is the network policy? A network policy in a Kubernetes resource that defines how pods are allowed to communicate with each other. Okay, the network policies are implemented using a set of rules that specify which pods can communicate with each other and on which port. So the main reason for having the network policy is to increase the security of your Kubernetes environment, and by default Kubernetes allow all the pod communication with each other. So if you don't have any network policy configured in your namespaces, which means that every namespaces can access each resources that's under in the namespace. So here, if you look at this diagram, so the pod present in the web namespace can access the pod present in database namespace and also access the pod present in app namespace. So this pod can access each other. In network policies, there are two types: the ingress and egress. So ingress is used for inbound network traffic, and egress is for outbound network traffic. So let's analyze this environment. kubectl get namespaces. We have app namespace, we have database namespace, and we have web namespace. Now let's check how many pods that we have. kubectl get pod -a. So in the app namespace we have this pod name called app. In database namespace we have pod name called db, and these are the kube system, which is the Kubernetes by default pods that is running on our cluster. And then we have in the web namespace we have the web pod. Let's go back to this diagram that we have seen earlier. So this is the logical flow of the current environment, and what we need to do next is we need to create a network policy in this database namespace. That network policy with the name of db-backend, and we should select the label as app is equal to tier in the policy. Before creating the network policy, let's first understand what labels that has been assigned to the database pod. kubectl describe pod. The database pod name is db and namespace is database. If you look at the label section of this describe command, the label is tier is equal to db, and in the question they have mentioned that we have to apply this policy for the pods which has label with app is equal to tier. I have created this sample policy. Let me just go through with this. So app version is this networking.ks.io/v1. kind is network policy. You may be wondering from where I got this reference of YAML file. So I have simply went through this kubernetes.io documentation page, where they have given the sample example of this network policy of ingress and egress. I have copy pasted this whole YAML file, and I have done the modification as per our question. Okay, so here we are. We have mentioned the kind is network policy. Then, as mentioned in the question, we have to create a network policy with the name as db-backend. I have assigned this namespaces as database, and then in the specification section I have written the pod selector, and match label I have mentioned the tier as database. If you remember this correctly, we have recently checked what is the label that we have on the database pod, and this policy is only applied to the ingress, because in the question they have mentioned that you have to just create the policy for the ingress traffic, and they haven't mentioned for the egress traffic. So we are not creating anything for the egress, we are just creating for the ingress. Okay, and then here we have mentioned the ingress from, and what is the namespace that we are going to apply this policy. Okay, so ingress, it is from the namespace is name is equal to app. So from where I got this label for the namespace. Okay, so if you look at this describe namespace command app, they have mentioned the label as name is equal to app, and the same we are mentioning it here, name colon app. And then in the question they have mentioned that we should apply this policy to the tier the pods which has tier app. Okay, and then they have also mentioned to have the port which is 27017. Look at this, they have mentioned that pod should connect to only 27017 port. Let's cross check this whether we have done it correctly or not. Create a network policy called db-backend. Have you assigned the name as db-backend? Yes. In the namespace database, creating the namespace database. Okay, and then it should allow a pods running in the app namespace. Okay, it should allow the pod running in the app namespace. We have written it here, and then which has the label as app tier. Okay, so tier is app that we have written here. You may be wondering why I haven't given this hyphen here. So hyphen means it's or condition, but currently as a question, if you read the question carefully, they are mentioning as the and condition, which means the pod is running in the namespace called app, and it should get the access which has tier is app. So the pod running in app namespace and which has tier is app, that should get access. Okay, and that's the reason we haven't mentioned this hyphenate here. If the question was the pods running in the namespace of web, for all the pods that running in the web namespace, it should get access, and pods running in the ABC namespace also should get access. So in that case, what we would have been written here is hyphen and then namespace director match label name is equal to ABC. Okay, you can read this later in a Kubernetes documentation. And then next part is the pod should connect only to 27017 port. So here we have written the port, and the port number is 27017. Let's apply this policy. kubectl create -f network policy YAML. Perfect, it has been created successfully. Now let's check the network policy by using describe command. kubectl describe network policy db-backend, and the namespace is database. Okay, so here is the policy, here is the specification of the policy, and the information in the policy has been written as it's not affecting the egress traffic, it's only applied on ingress traffic. Okay, that's it for video. Thank you for watching this.